We got another one.
Yeah. Bitches, you crazy? Crazy? Bitches, you crack. You crack.
Yeah, you must be crazy.
Yeah.
I've been on it on the daily.
Every day.
They say I'm so disrespectful. I say whatever I like. If you got it, homie, I'ma take it from you. I don't even bother and think about it twice. These bitches so fucking stressful. Probably just wasting my time. But she kinda fine, I'ma hit a line. I'm riding out, I'ma make a mine. Stepping on the gas on the fast lane. My fuck around and turn into my pathways. You, my niggas still clear for my pathway. Will be the fucking man to my last days. Never understood a motherfucker trying to go against us. That was too silly. Ain't no switches sweeter than that pussy sucking money, baby. Nothing new, really easy.
We got another one.
Yeah. Bitches, you crazy? Crazy? Bitches, you crack. You crack.
Yeah, you must be crazy.
Yeah.
I've been on it on the daily.
Day to day.
They say your wife, but you crazy. I flew to the A, cause they pay me. And now I want fucking she basic. I'm off all these drugs, feel amazing. It's every day I hear that fake shit. And why she obsessed with my favorites? I hit it like 5 times in a row with no losses. Need more rings from my hand, I'm saving. I get what I want, man, that's great. That she asked for, that's crazy. But I'm still gon' hit it like switches. I'm saucing like curry for free. Yo, you go try this my lane. Yo, we straight, we smoking propane. Gassing bitches every day. I'm passing bitches every day like
Easy. Yeah. Yeah. Better music. Oh, is you crack? Yeah, ain't fucking on my day. Sounding like repeat. That AK. Bang, speaking of that AK. Blast past that endo. Pass that bitch on my side. Now my ex is trying to rekindle. No, you should've stuck around like a day one. I still keep it pimpin' like the cake come. You gonna hate on the side cause your cake come. We might fuck your bitch, then blades rolling back the touches. Still a nigga I couldn't fuck with. I'm rapping tracks like I'm rapping my lunches. And I don't get that the niggas I don't fuck with. So fuck it, I'm gone. Nigga.
King of Hearts, aka Aladdin. I don't even rap though. You niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. You niggas not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some of the lines, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. No, I can't rock, not even a little bit. You niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. Niggas not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some of the lines, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. No, I can't rock, not even a little bit. Kaboom, look who's in the room, like Dr. Doom with the status flow. About to go off on you niggas cause y'all don't deliver the proper status quo. About being trappers or rappers that don't matter. I'm a killer with a natural flow. I'm not your average Joe, talking cars or clothes. Or I'm out here fucking all the baddest hoes. The shit behind me like a ladder road. Now I'm on the road to show you lying ass niggas how to rap. Not about trap, but to elevate, to be great and heal your souls. Time to switch your rhymes up like an audible. I'm so tired you niggas on like I don't know that you work at the grocery store and really don't got a chance to put that dough. I got a lot on my mind, don't got no time to hear y'all lines with fake shit. If you did that crime or did that time, bring clever lines and make sense. Some of y'all so basic, the auto-tune be having y'all doom and y'all think it's greatness, but really your flow is copy and pasted. Just popping pills and getting faded. Shooting guns is how we banging. Dogging bitches and ducking cases, that's the same shit everybody be saying. That's why the rap game tainted. Not original when you create it. Y'all just want to be what you see on TV, and it got me saying niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. You niggas not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some of the lines, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. No, I can't rock, not even a little bit. Niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. You niggas not act, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some of the lines, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. I can't rock, not even a little bit. I don't be in the street making moves, but I got a few homies that really do. Lying on myself, something I don't do. There's street codes and y'all tend to break the rules. Why lie in your raps? What you got to prove? Not being yourself is how you lose. I'm giving truth, then living proof that being yourself is really cool. But see, you gotta be G by yourself with nobody looking at you. Ain't gotta be a thug to get it out the mud to turn nothing to something. So I think it's time for y'all to quit fronting with the hustling. Cause even mainstream niggas ain't real. It's about time y'all enhance y'all skills. Rap about something that I can't feel. Gotta be from the heart and it gotta be real. That's for real. It's time to kill all mama rap cause I ain't feeling it. Whack ass lines ain't good for the spirit. I respect the ones that's living it, but not the ones that's pretending. Cause them niggas lame. You niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. You niggas not act, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some around, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. No, I can't rock, not even a little bit. Niggas can't rap, not even a little bit. Niggas don't trap, not even a little bit. Niggas say cap more than a little bit. You niggas not act, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, not even a little bit. Heard some alarm, wasn't even feeling it. Seen them offline, wasn't really living it. No, I can't rock, not even a little bit.
Shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for coming through. I've been having a hell of a day. I don't know if what's going on with my internet or if YouTube is messing up my flow, but let me just see if my audio is coming through. Having a hell of a day. I don't know if what's going on with my internet. All right, so it sounds like my audio is coming in through. I can see that the videos were coming in a bit choppy. But again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for jumping on another live stream with your boy. I appreciate you guys. I see Gyro Goddess in the building, D. Allen Warren in the building, Sally Sue in the building, Big Dog Philly OG in the building. Much, much love. Thank you guys for coming through. Let me just make sure I share the stream where I need to share it real quick. And then we will continue. So just give me 2 seconds, guys. 2 seconds, and I got you. See, that was quick. So again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for coming through. Got a quick stream for you guys, probably be like an hour long, but I got some good information, some old information. So, and we're going to go through it all, dissect it. So yeah, let's jump in this month. So supply chain blues, challenges, shortages, and disruptions ahead. Now, we've all seen gas prices going up. We've seen all the prices when you go to the store to buy something. You know, the other day I went in to go buy a soda, and usually I drink Coke. I like soda. That's my Achilles heel. I remember you can buy a bottle of soda, 20-ounce soda, for $1.50. You go in the store now, that bitch is like $2.89. And what are they telling you? Shortages because they don't have drivers. Shortages because they can't get the product overseas. They can't make the goods in the factories because they have shortages of workers. Now remember, this has all been a setup. This has all been a plan unfolding. So let's read this. We are experiencing in real time the major downside to a global economy. Just as he who shall not be named 19 has been a universally shared experience. It ain't being shared with me because ain't nobody I know got that shit. But so too is the supply chain crisis unfolding around us. For most consumers, this is the first time that supply and demand have been this out of whack simultaneously. The domino effect has been unprecedented. Factory closures, back-ordered goods, container shortages, harbor queues, labor shortages, unprecedented product demand, and now inflation. Guys, A lot of shortages are to come. Like I said, the big one is gas. And we are headed for what? The winter. And when the winter, what happens to the temperature? What will happen to the grid system if we don't have enough gas to support the people who need heat? It's going to be a cold one. Salute, JJ. I see you, broski. America faces supply chain disruption and shortages. More news on that. There's a quiet panic happening in the U.S. economy. Medical labs are running out of supplies, just like the same thing we went through at the beginning of the recent, scamdemic. The problem seems to be getting worse as the shortages pile on top of each other, like a snake eating its tail. The Ouroboros, for instance, the inability to fix trucks means the truck drivers can't haul boxes of goods. This is a trickle down, as they just said, domino effect, where a lot of people will be affected by this. Now, check this out. This shit is hilarious to me. But it's funny, but it's kind of scary at the same time. Because watch how I break this down, right? So Governor Newsom signs bill protecting the rights of people to get who shall not be named 19. Governor Gavin Newsom signed SB 742, which aims to protect the rights of people to safely receive the jabbers without concern for intimidation or physical obstruction. So, what does that mean? Those who defer to anti-vaccine, those who make claims against the vaccine, will be deemed now under the motherfucking law as preventing people and their rights to receive the vaccine. That's some big shit, people. Laws are now being placed to protect those who want the vaccine from those who do not want vaccine. That's starting now. Governor Newsom, California. Governor Newsom recently signed Senate Bill 742, which aims to defer anti-vaccine protesters from preventing people from getting a COVID. Oh, I didn't want to say it. He who shall not be named 19 vaccine. SB 742, which is authorized by Senator Dr. Richard Hand of Sacramento, will protect the rights of people to safely receive jabbers without concern for intimidation or physical obstruction from anti-vaccine protesters. Like I said in my last stream, guys, the freedom of speech is going away. The freedom of information is going away, and fast. Pretty fast. He who shall not be named vaccine, religious exemptions should not exist. Now, I'm not a big religious guy. That's not my forte. I don't believe in keeping my brain confined to the books of other human beings when nature tells you what's up. But check this out. The laws allow for jabbers requirements without religious exemptions. Not only that, but morality mandates it. Morality. But doesn't religion teach morality? Do to others as you would want done to you. So if I don't want something done to me, should you not do it to me? The Constitution is not a roadblock for such jabbers mandates. We have a strong tradition of protecting the freedom of religion in our country, as we should. The First Amendment specifically guarantees that the government cannot prohibit the free exercise of religion. In plain English, that means every individual has the right to hold their own religious beliefs and to engage in actions or practices in support of those religious beliefs without government intrusion. So if it's my religion, under the kingdom of Raphael Flat Plane, under the skies of Raphael Flat Plane, because we all live in our own universe, our own yoni verse. I should have the freedom to exercise whether I want something inside me or not. I should be able to have the freedom with my beliefs to engage in actions or practices in support of my beliefs. And if my belief is not being forced to put some kind of chemical inside me, I should be able to practice that because I'm not hurting anybody. As long as I'm not hurting anybody, I should be able to have the freedom to practice that. Nah, Bronze, you can go live. I'm not going to take too much time. You can go live after me. Don't worry. But yeah, except the First Amendment doesn't exactly mean that, according to this. The freedom of belief is absolute, but the freedom to engage in actions in support of that belief is not, nor should it be. You do not have freedoms anymore. They do not want you to have freedoms. And I will go a little bit more into that a little bit later. This is about taking all your rights, people. Check this out. Experts. We got the experts here now. The niggas who know the shit. Experts reveal what can really stop he who must not be named 19 from spreading this winter. And you know what? A number of officials and experts are calling for more jabbers in order to stop the he who should not be named from spreading far and fast this winter. It's all about getting that in your arm, getting you pumped up with mRNA. That's what the experts say. And check this out. In other news, guess who they're coming for now?
More than 28 million children between 5 and 11 could become eligible to receive the COVID vaccine by Halloween.
28 million children will be eligible under the FDA PrEP Act. Doing this for your safety. But if your children gets hurt under the same act, they're not liable. Can't trust these people. Eastlake man's kidney transplant put on hold due to Cleveland Clinic's new vaccination. So this guy has been waiting for a transplant, right? After more than a year of paying tests and finally a match. And Eastlake man is just days away from getting a new kidney and a new lease on life. This guy's been waiting so long to get a kidney so he can move on with his life. But all of that is up in the air now thanks to the Cleveland Clinic's new policy requiring he who should not be named 19 jabbers for organ transplant recipients and donors. It is getting worse, people. We couldn't go to the doctor before because of the pandemic. Now that it's coming down, people can't go to the doctor because they haven't taken the jabbers. And what's going to happen? More people dying. And what they're going to say that they died from? We all know. Getting flu with COVID. Ooh, almost said it again. Jesus. Getting flu with he who shall not be named doubles risk of death. And what are they telling everybody to do now? Get the flu vaccine. Get the flu vaccine. Everybody, get the flu vaccine. You're gonna get that in conjunction with the he who shall not be named jabbers. And then what? Let's say you get the flu. You think they're gonna call it the flu? How about those people who don't have faith in the he who shall not be named vaccine, but have faith in the flu vaccine, and they take the flu vaccine and now have the flu? Will it be labeled the flu, or will it be labeled he who shall not be named? So will the numbers go up again because of that? This wasn't reported, but I find this big. Clashes break out in Rome amid anger over he who shall not be named green pass. So in Rome, if you have taken the jabbers, you are given a green pass. And with that green pass, you are allowed certain passage to certain areas in Rome. Kind of like what they're doing here with the passport, huh? Now, we're going to go back in time a little bit. Let's see what Bill Gates said February 23rd, 2017.
We also face a new threat that the next epidemic has a good chance of originating on a computer screen of a terrorist intent on using genetic engineering to create a synthetic version of the smallpox virus or a contagious and highly deadly strain of flu. So the point is that we ignore the strong link between health security and an synthetic version of the smallpox virus or a contagious and highly deadly strain of flu.
Highly contagious, deadly strain of flu. And what do they call that flu? He who shall not be mother named. Miss Pink, shout out to you, Miss Pink. Good to see you. Thank you for coming by. Much love, much love. Smash that like button, family. Share the stream if you guys can. But yeah, 2017, Bill Gates.
In genetic engineering to create a synthetic version has a good chance of originating on a computer screen of a terrorist intent on using genetic engineering to create a synthetic version of the smallpox virus or a contagious and highly deadly strain of flu. So the point is that we ignore the strong link between health security and international security at our peril. Whether it occurs by the quirk of nature or at the hand of a terrorist, epidemiologists show through their models that a respiratory pathogen would kill more than 30 million people in less than a year. And there is a reasonable probability that.
Now, check this out, right? Now, we know what he's linked with, and I'm going to show it later. But I don't know if most of you know about this guy. I covered this before. This is Rick Bright, right? He's an American immunologist, vaccine researcher, and public health official. He was the director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA, from 2016 to 2020, right? In May 2020, he filed a whistleblower complaint alleging that the Trump administration ignored his early warnings about the he who shall not be named pandemic and is illegally retaliated against him by ousting him from his role. But check this out. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Crimson Tide.
As he was well equipped.
This is Rick Bright here, the same guy. Now, Crimson Tide was a joint exercise conducted from January to August 2019, in which numerous national, state, and local private organizations in the U.S. participated in order to test the capacity of the federal government and 12 states to respond to a severe pandemic of influenza originating in China. I'm going to say that like Donald Trump. China. Okay? This is from January 2019 to August 2019. And what happened a year after that? We had Event 201. Event 201, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, a high-level pandemic exercise on October 18, 2019 in New York. So it wasn't even a year later, excuse me. It was just a couple months The exercise illustrated areas where public-private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences. Crimson Tide, the same thing, of a virus originating in China. Guys, are we still in this exercise? Is the exercise still going on?
To do that job because just 5 months before the new virus emerged, his and other key agencies had concluded an exercise titled Crimson Contagion, premised on the exact idea of a fast-spreading virus originating in China. What did Crimson Contagion teach you about fighting pandemics? What were the lessons?
There were lessons about shortages on critical supplies, such as personal protective equipment, such as masks, N95 masks, gowns, goggles, and there were lessons about the need for funding.
You had practiced this.
We drilled, we'd practiced, we'd been through Ebola, we'd been through Zika, we'd been through H1N1. This was not
the viruses anything out. Those are practices. He's telling you. All the scare viruses that come out have been practices. He's telling you this.
a new thing for us. We knew exactly what to do.
He says one big lesson from Crimson Contagion was that the entire U.S. medical supply chain would be understocked and under stress for vaccines, testing, and personal protective equipment.
I had industry.
And what happened at the height of the pandemic? No PPE, right? Or whatever they want to call it. There was no medical supplies. There was nothing. Why? Because they practiced for this. This is what they wanted.
Manufacturers, industry reps sending me emails almost every day, raising alarm bells that the supply chain was running dry and that America and the world was in trouble.
And super in trouble. Why? Because once again, not only Americans,
okay, today is June 1st.
but the entire world has fallen for the trap. Guys, research Crimson Contagion. It was done right under our noses. Right under our noses. And is linked to this. And remember, you guys remember Dr. Ngozi? A lot of people don't bring this up. And I feel it's relevant right now. Let's listen to what she says.
Clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that if even if you died of
Still a COVID death. And now look, I like how they're freezing me up now. They won't even let me finish playing it. Wow. That's how you know when you're doing something wrong. Is my stream done? Wow. Look at that. Let's see if I can refresh that. See if I refresh it and it plays. That goes to show when you're doing something that they don't like, they will try and stop your ass.
Clear in terms of the definition of people dying.
Look at that. Don't even let me finish it. Jesus Christ. Let's try one more time.
clear in terms of the definition of people dying of?
Nope. They won't even let me finish it. Damn, Facebook. Look, it's even loaded too. You know what? See if we can find you. Oh, now you don't want to pop up, right? Oh, here you go.
Just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people.
Oh, wow. Look, even here, they don't let me play it. Guys, I'm showing you guys live what's going on. Live. They don't let me play this damn video. That's crazy.
Just want to be
live, they don't let me do it.
Just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people.
Wow. Even going to the damn
dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death.
They don't even let her finish.
It means that if even if.
Wow, guys. Wow. You heard what she said. Experience interruptions. This just says it right here on the bottom. But you know what? Let me take off the banner. But experience
you also
interruptions.
were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that if technically, then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that if even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that.
So, if it's not the cause, but listed as the cause, I guess that's why numbers go up. Right? I'm giving you guys a blast from the past. This is why numbers go up. Let's watch it in full.
Just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that if even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
It's not helpful because you just told us that you're just a bullshitter. Straight up. That's all you told us. And all that whole little speech, you just told us that you're just a straight bullshitter and we're going to give you falsified numbers. Now, I showed this before a long time ago. I showed this back before it even got updated. So you guys don't see I'm bullshitting. CDC 2019 novel He Who Shall Not Be Named and called Real-Time RT-PCR Diagnostic Panel. Done by who? Cat Dog Cat. The people giving us our bullshit. Now, down in page 41. Yeah, 41. Here we go. They're basing all of this, right? All the numbers, the jabs, everything on this. The analytical sensitivity of the RT-PCR assays contained in the Cat Dog Cat 2019 novel He Who Shall Not Be Named 2019 NCOV real-time RT-PCR diagnostic panel were determined in limit of detection studies, since no quantified isolates of the 2019 NCOV were available for cat-dog-cat use at the time the test was developed and conducted. Assays designed for detection were tested with characterized stocks of an in vitro transcribed full-length RNA, meaning they made the virus so that they can test the virus. Let that sink in. Share that jewel right there. And now we get into the nitty-gritty.
A false flag operation is an action that is carried out in such a way as to make it look like it was done by someone other than the real perpetrator. Taking its metaphor from naval warfare, where ships would sometimes fly false flags as a ruse de guerre in order to sneak up on their enemy, its use has been expanded to include military actions, intelligence operations, and even political subterfuge. It is not difficult to see how governments can use this tactic to whip the public into war hysteria against their political enemies. By staging an attack and blaming their opponents, governments can dupe their population into going along with whatever policies they wish to enact in the name of fighting the enemy. It's a childishly simple tactic, but, as we shall see, it has worked for hundreds of years to lead populations into war against targeted groups. For the past 20 years, the world has been in the midst of a so-called war on terror set in motion by a false flag attack of spectacular proportions. And now, the stage is being set for a new spectacular attack to usher in the next stage in that war on terror, the war on bioterrorism.
We can't predict when, but given the continual emergence of new pathogens, the increasing risk of a bioterror attack, and how connected our world is through air travel, there is a significant probability of a large and lethal modern-day pandemic occurring in our lifetimes.
As the world begins
Sorry for the technical difficulty, guys. As we can see, they're trying to slow my stream down. We should be coming back in a bit. Jeez Louise. It was slowing my Streamlabs. I couldn't load up my Streamlabs. They didn't
to lose its collective mind over the threat of viruses. The idea that biological agents and infectious pathogens will be the weapon of choice of terrorists is being seeded in the public imagination. As in every such false flag event, the coming bioterrorist attack will be blamed on a convenient scapegoat. The invisible enemy of a deadly new pathogen and the shadowy terror groups who, we will be told, are responsible for releasing it. But, as history shows, it is the people who are claiming to predict this attack in advance, and who are in position.
This is getting annoying. Anything to slow a brother down. Anything. Jeez Louise. Stop playing me.
To dictate the world's response to it, who should be considered the prime suspects in the wake of any such event. This is an exploration of false flags and the dawn of bioterrorism. You're tuned into the Corbett Report. What is a false flag? Although the term false flag has been used in a figurative sense since the 16th century to refer to some person or group disguising their true nature or intentions, its modern use derives from the annals of naval warfare, where ships would literally fly the flag of a different nation, pretending to be allies in order to slip past enemy defenses. The ruse was successful enough that it was adopted for land and air warfare. No longer were literal flags necessary in order to carry out these false flag operations. Any use of deception in order to conceal the true origins and perpetrators of an attack could, by extension, be counted as a false flag operation. It's a simple idea, but to those not versed in the art of deceit, it can be devastatingly effective. Unsurprisingly, rulers have used the tactic for hundreds of years to rally their own populations for war against an enemy target. Take the case of Swedish King Gustav III. In 1788, he was looking for a way to unite an increasingly divided nation and raise his own fallen political fortunes. Like many a ruler before and after, he decided that launching a war against his old rivals, the Russians, would be the perfect vehicle for rallying the public around his government. But the king had a problem. There was no appetite among the Swedish public for such a war, and he didn't have the authority to declare war unilaterally. So he arranged a false flag operation. Gustav dressed up his own soldiers as Russian troops, complete with Russian coins in their pockets, and ordered them to attack a Swedish garrison stationed in Finland. The Swedish public, believing it to be a genuine Russian attack, were outraged, and the Russo-Swedish War of 1788 to 1790 began. Or take the case of Seishiro Itagaki, a general in the Imperial Japanese Army who, by 1931, had risen through the ranks to become the chief of intelligence in the Kwantung Army, Japan's largest army group. Itagaki had a problem. He wanted to invade Manchuria, but the Japanese Minister of War wouldn't allow it. So the general took matters into his own hands by organizing a small cadre of rebels within the Japanese army and launching a false flag attack. They detonated some explosives on a railway track near a Chinese garrison and blamed the incident on the Chinese themselves. The next day, the Japanese began their attack in response to the Chinese provocation, and Itagaki got his Manchurian invasion. Or take the case of the Manning Memo. This document records the discussions that took place between US President George W. Bush and UK Prime Minister Tony Blair at the White House on January 31, 2003. They were committed to starting a war with Iraq, but they had a problem. They didn't have any actual reason for invading Iraq. As the memo reveals, Bush proposed a false flag solution, painting a U-2 spy plane in United Nations colors and flying it low over Iraqi airspace in the hopes that it would be shot down by Iraqi air defense. The outrage, it was assumed, would give the leaders the blank check they needed to wage their war. Blair reportedly balked at the idea, but the pair did agree that the invasion would go ahead regardless of whether or not any weapons of mass destruction were ever found. War crimes be damned. There are many such examples of false flag operations being used throughout history. But the tactic isn't an old, dusty relic of the distant past. It very much pertains to the world of the 21st century. False flag terrorism. It seems inevitable, in hindsight, that the idea of a false flag attack would be adapted from its literal use in naval warfare to a more general tactic of deception in military engagements. So it's not surprising at all, then, that the concept was further abstracted from a stratagem of warfare to a tool of spycraft. With the rise of the age of terrorism came the rise of false flag terrorism, spectacular acts of violence designed to look like they were the acts of shadowy terror groups. Once again, the trick is simple, but effective. In the early 1950s, the Israelis were concerned that the British would withdraw their forces from the Suez Canal zone, strengthening Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser and his quest to form an alliance against Israel based on pan-Arab nationalism. Realizing that the only thing that would keep Britain committed to the region was an ongoing state of emergency, they hit upon a simple solution: a false flag terror operation. Officially codenamed Operation Susanna, but today known as the Lavon Affair, Israeli military intelligence staged a number of bombings around Egypt, hoping to blame the acts on communists, the Muslim Brotherhood, malcontents, or other convenient scapegoats. But the plan was foiled by Egyptian authorities. Several members of the Israeli cell were captured, and the Israeli defense minister was forced to resign over the incident. It was never officially admitted until 2005, when Israel formally honored 9 of the spies that had helped carry out the bombings. But the era of false flag terrorism kicked off in earnest on September 11, 2001, when the neocons in the Bush administration and their accomplices in the military-industrial complex and the intelligence services of multiple countries found an excuse for their longed-for invasion of Afghanistan and the fulfillment of long-standing Zionist plans for carving out a greater Israel and redrawing the map of the Middle East. Prized as a pipeline corridor, Afghanistan was also the linchpin of the global heroin trade and an important base of operations for the forthcoming war on terror. In fact, so important was the country to the Bush administration that it made the full-scale plan for invading Afghanistan the subject of its first National Security Directive, NSPD-9. The plan was ready and awaiting presidential approval on September 4th, 2001, 1 week before the events that would supposedly justify such an invasion.
By the first week of September, the process had arrived at a strategy that was presented to principals and later became NSPD-9, the president's first major substantive national security decision directive. It was presented for a decision by principals on September 4th, 2001, 7 days before the 11th, and later signed by the president with minor changes and a preamble to reflect the events of September 11th in October.
9/11 was the foundational event of the 21st century, an excuse for numerous items on the checklist of the neocon cabal at the heart of the Bush administration. The creation of the Homeland Security State, the murderous wars of aggression to reshape the Middle East, the expansion of the military-industrial complex even beyond its Cold War excesses, the formation of the information-industrial complex. We have all watched these events unfolding like a nightmare over the course of the past 2 decades. But now, just as the 9/11 myth has finally begun to relinquish its grasp on the public psyche, another event has come along to send the world back into a state of irrational fear. This time, the emergency is predicated not on the Muslim boogeyman, but on the invisible boogeyman, SARS-CoV-2. As we have already seen, the advent of new forms of warfare inevitably brings with it new opportunities for war planners to adapt the false flag strategy for new battlegrounds. And so it is that we find ourselves on the cusp of a new era of false flag operations. The anthrax false flag. As it turns out, 9/11 may not prove to be the most long-lasting and world-changing false flag event to have taken place in the fall of 2001. Although largely forgotten today, the anthrax attacks that followed on the heels of the day that changed everything have had a profound effect in shaping public policy and setting the stage for the biosecurity state that is emerging today. The week after September 11, 2001, a series of letters containing anthrax spores were mailed to various media outlets and, later, to 2 U.S. senators, Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy, who had raised concerns about the Patriot Act which the Bush regime was attempting to rush through Congress. The anthrax-laced letters, which caused the shutdown of Congress and led to the emergency passage of the Patriot Act before legislators even had a chance to read the bill, would go on to kill 5 and injure 17 others. In those first chaotic days of the attack, ABC's Brian Ross began reporting from his anonymous, well-placed sources that the anthrax spores contained traces of bentonite, a troubling chemical additive that just happened to be a trademark of Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein's biological weapons program.
Peter, from 3 well-placed but separate sources tonight, ABC News has been told that initial tests on the anthrax sent to Senator Daschle have found a telltale chemical additive whose name means a lot to weapons experts. It is called bentonite. It's possible other countries may be using it too, but it is a trademark of Saddam Hussein's biological weapons program.
Of course, this turned out to be a complete lie, a lie that Ross has never clarified or retracted to this day. As was later confirmed, the spores in question were actually derived from the Ames strain, a strain of anthrax whose virulence made it the gold standard for research into the bacterium by the biological warriors at the United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. Unsurprisingly, Once the anthrax was found to have sourced from the US government's own biological research labs and not an Iraqi weapons program, coverage of the affair in the mainstream media became less frequent and less detailed. After years of floating the name of bioweapons expert Stephen Hatfill as a person of interest in the investigation, the FBI pinned the blame on Bruce Ivins, a lone wolf who allegedly orchestrated the entire attack himself because of mental instability. Hatfill successfully sued the FBI for nearly $6 million for undue harassment, and Ivins conveniently killed himself before ever being charged with any crime. In the end, not a single person was arrested or indicted for their participation in one of the highest profile attacks in American history. The anthrax false flag killed multiple birds with one stone. It associated the terror attack of 9/11 with the subsequent bioterror attack that was quickly connected to Saddam Hussein and Iraq. That association was still strong in the minds of many Americans, some who may still have erroneously blamed Iraq for the attack during the build-up to the Iraq War in 2002 and 2003. As Whitney Webb points out in her exhaustive report on the event, the anthrax attack also saved Bioport, the crony-connected DoD contractor that supplied the US military with the highly controversial anthrax vaccine. Facing growing concerns about the safety and efficacy of its vaccine, Bioport faced financial ruin. Until the anthrax attacks happened, and demand for their questionable product skyrocketed. Later rebranding as Emergent Biosolutions, the company benefited from the largesse of the Gates-backed Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness, and, as Webb notes, the company is now set to profit from the coronavirus crisis. The anthrax attack also gave an excuse for the creation of a wide-ranging legislative and institutional framework for implementing medical martial law in the event of a subsequent bioterrorist attack, including the wide-scale adoption of the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, authorizing forced quarantines and forced vaccinations in the wake of a declared health emergency. The anthrax false flag also gave a gigantic shot in the arm to another major wing of the military-industrial complex, the biodefense sector. Before anthrax entered the public consciousness as a weapon of terror in the fall of 2001, bioweapons research had been sidelined and shrouded in secrecy. After the attacks, however, the US government, and indeed every government in the world, had a perfect excuse to vastly expand its biological weapons programs in the name of biological security. As Jonathan King, a professor of microbiology at MIT, explains,
response to the anthrax attacks and the bioterrorism initiative has been to launch a nationwide billion-dollar campaign to, quote, defend us from unknown terrorists. But the character of this program is roughly as follows. You say, well, what would the terrorists come up with? What's the nastiest, most dangerous, most difficult to diagnose, difficult to treat microorganisms that we can think of? Well, let's go bring that organism into existence so that we can figure out how to defend against it. The fact of the matter is, it's indistinguishable from an offensive program in which you would do the same thing.
And now, 2 decades later, that massive billion-dollar campaign made to defend us from the anthrax threat has led to the creation of a vast biosecurity infrastructure. From biological labs conducting gain-of-function research, to government offices conducting bioterror simulations, to legislation granting extraordinary powers to unelected health authorities in the wake of the next attack, the groundwork has been laid for the next stage of government-sponsored false flag terrorism. False flag bioterrorism. Ever since 9/11 and the anthrax attacks of 2001, the public has been told that the next spectacular terror attack would involve biological agents engineered by shadowy terror groups.
At a Tucson gymnasium, people wait their turn for life-saving pills to be taken after an outbreak of a smallpox virus. Scenarios like these are taking place across the United States. Thankfully, they're only simulations.
Although we are fortunate not to have experienced a biological attack here in the United States since the anthrax attacks post-September 11th, the threat remains very real. Foreign adversaries have already demonstrated an interest in developing genetic and biological weaponry.
GNN has just learned a group calling itself A Brighter Dawn, or ABD, is claiming responsibility for the creation and intentional release of the Clade X virus. In a YouTube video, a spokesman for the group says the goal is to reduce the human population to pre-industrial levels. That, he says, will bring the world back into balance and prevent the destruction of the planet.
The Center for Disease Control is one of only 2 labs in the world which officially hold samples of the smallpox virus. The other is in Moscow. But now bioterror experts fear many other countries may have the virus, and there are concerns it could be used as a weapon. Bioterrorism experts envisage grim scenarios where a suicide by a terrorist, contagious with smallpox, walks through a busy airport infecting hundreds of others who spread the virus to their destinations.
Those warnings have only increased in urgency in this age of COVID.
We also face a new threat that the next epidemic has a good chance of originating on a computer screen of a terrorist intent on using genetic engineering to create a synthetic version of the smallpox virus or a contagious and highly deadly strain of flu.
What else are we not listening to that we need to take action on now?
Well, the idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked.
There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza.
That's Bright, the guy I just showed you who exposed Crimson Contagion. Remember about Crimson Contagion? Their exercise that they ran from January 2019 to August 2019 about a pandemic that started in China in 2019. Jesus, I paused it for a second. Now they want to mess with the stream. Here we go again.
Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
Statements like these not only implant in the public mind the idea that the next spectacular terror attack is likely to be biological, but that when such an attack occurs, we should immediately pin the blame on the shadowy terrorists who, we will likely be told, cooked the pathogen up in their bioweapons lab in the caves of Tora Bora. But just as anyone with national security experience immediately recognized that 9/11 was not the work of 19 men with box cutters, but in fact bore the hallmarks of a precisely coordinated intelligence operation, so too should the public be aware that those with the means, motive, and opportunity to create and disseminate a globally spreading infectious pathogen are not cave-dwelling terrorists, but well-funded government and military researchers. Although prohibited by the 1972 Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention, the US has, in fact, maintained an illegal and secret germ warfare research program for decades. Long known to insiders, but formally denied by the US government, the existence of the program was confirmed in the pages of the New York Times on September 4, 2001, the same day that the invasion orders for Afghanistan were sent to President Bush for authorization, 1 week before the day that changed everything, and 2 weeks before the beginning of the anthrax false flag. Although the program was downplayed as foolish but not illegal, and portrayed as a defensive program that was largely curtailed in the wake of the end of the Cold War, a groundbreaking 2018 investigation by independent journalist Ilyana Gaidanjiva found that a network of Pentagon-run biolabs in ex-Soviet bloc states continues to this day to produce deadly bacteria, weaponized viruses, and toxins prohibited by the Biological Weapons Convention. But the US is certainly not alone in its multi-billion-dollar quest to develop more deadly, and more precise, biological agents. Britain's program, centered around the research at the UK's secretive Pordendown Bioweapon Laboratory, included the work of researchers like Vladimir Pisechnik, a microbiologist who had worked on the Soviet germ warfare program weaponizing anthrax and other biological agents before defecting to Britain in 1989. He was hired by the UK government to conduct his own research into anthrax antidotes at Pordendown and died just weeks after the anthrax attacks took place. Dr. David Kelly, who debriefed Pesechnik after his defection and offered him the job at Pordendown, had told a friend that he was going to write a book exposing what he knew about the bioweapons program, but instead ended up dead on Harrowdown Hill under extremely suspicious circumstances. The Soviets also had an extensive biological weapons research program. The fruits of that program included the Novichok agent that has been blamed for high-profile assassination attempts in recent years, including the poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal, who were randomly discovered by the chief nursing officer of the British Army just 10 miles from the Pordendown bioweapons lab. It was even reported by the Sunday Times over 2 decades ago that Israel, which is not a signatory to the Biological Weapons Convention, has worked on developing a biological weapon that would harm Arabs while leaving Jews unaffected. The Israel Institute for Biological Research, where this research was conducted, is a continuation of Hamid Beit, a biowarfare unit in the Israel Defense Force whose founders believed that if microbiology could help in providing the means to establish the Jewish state, so be it. The Institute made headlines earlier this year for its groundbreaking research identifying coronavirus antibodies and its subsequent quest to develop an Israeli COVID-19 vaccine. But beyond the secret biological weapons programs, there has been a publicly acknowledged and funded program to weaponize viruses and pathogens that has been ongoing for years. And once again, the threat of bioterrorism has been invoked as a reason for funding this admittedly dangerous research to create the perfect bioweapon.
Bioterror is always the potential for bioterror. And we have a major biodefense research and development effort that spans agencies from the NIH to do the basic research to be able to develop better vaccines, how you counter engineered microbes, how you approach drug resistance engineered microbes, the CDC surveillance mechanisms to determine if there's new microbes or anything out there in society particularly toxic that could be used in a bioterror situation. The Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, we do all of that.
This work, referred to as gain-of-function research, involves weaponizing biological agents so that scientists can develop vaccines or other defenses against them. Of course, gain-of-function research is, in its key aspects, identical to an offensive biological weapons program, but simply framed as a defensive and preventative measure. The work of the researchers in this field has not been without controversy. In 1995, researchers dug up a victim of the 1918 Spanish flu from the Alaskan permafrost in order to resurrect the virus using genetic sequencing. In 2015, researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology participated in experiments weaponizing bat-derived coronavirus that even other molecular biologists warned was presenting the world with a clear and present danger. The research even received funding for US aid, which was illegal at the time, as the US had suspended funding for gain-of-function research in 2014. Time and again, those looking at the history of biowarfare are confronted by a key fact. Those who have dedicated their lives to weaponizing pathogens and dreaming up bioterror scenarios aren't the shadowy terrorist biologists in their cave fortress compound, but the government-funded researchers at both secret and public biolabs around the world. We have entered an age where the threat of a bioterror attack is very real. The only question facing the public now is, who are the real bioterrorists? And can we rely on government agencies, their appointed health authorities, and the corporate media to accurately identify those terrorists in the wake of the next spectacular terror attack? Conclusion. 2 decades ago, the idea of a false flag attack was incomprehensible to the general public. Why would the government attack itself, was the oft-heard question of those who could not imagine such duplicity being used to fool a nation into war. But this is not the world of 2001. It is 2020, and by now, nearly everyone is familiar with false flag operations, What was once an obscure tactic deployed by military and intelligence agencies in the shadowy world of spies and soldiers is now openly discussed and debated in the mainstream news. Make no mistake, this is a major step. An important tool of control, used to pull the wool over the eyes of the public for centuries, has gone from a laughable fringe conspiracy theory to an openly acknowledged and vigorously denied conspiracy reality within the space of 2 decades. But have we really learnt the lessons of history about false flag terrorism? Do we even really know what that term means? And would we recognize it if that trick were employed again in a different context? They say forewarned is forearmed. Nowhere is that adage more aptly applied than in the realm of false flag terrorism. The entire reason that these deception operations have been used by country after country for centuries is that they are so effective. But they are only effective because throughout those centuries, the general public was unable to wrap their minds around a trick so devious and downright evil. Now we have to completely break the spell that governments have cast over the public. In the event of any spectacular terror attack, biological or otherwise, we have to take the history of false flag operations into account and put the government at the top of the list of suspects. When enough of the population has adjusted their thinking in this way, the trick will have lost its effectiveness, and those seeking to direct society through fear will have to abandon it altogether. This is a monumental task, but it is not to be taken lightly. Given the infrastructure for full-scale medical martial law that has been carefully laid over the past 2 decades, and given the lockdowns, forced vaccinations, enforced unemployment, and digital dollars tied to social credit scores that have been promised by those seeking to put us through the Great Reset, the future of humanity may depend on our response to the next bioterror attack. The only question is, can we wake up enough of the public to these tricks before the real bioterrorists launch their next false flag operation?
So we, you know,
Of course, right at the last part is going to do this. Bear with me, guys. We're almost done here.
we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, you know, I'd say is will get attention this time.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, you fucking bastard.
Soaring prices.
Can't stand that motherfucker. But guys, keep telling you, with every single virus that comes out, more and more of our freedoms are being taken away. And it's not about our freedoms. We are told from the very man we quote unquote call our president today, he doesn't give a shit about our freedoms. Let's hear from him.
Over. This summer, we made progress through the combination of vaccine requirements and incentives, as well as the FDA approval. 4 million more people got their first shot in August than they did in July. But we
because shit was getting mandated.
Need to do more. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
It's not about freedom or personal choice, people.
So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor, for personal choice, this is not about freedom or personal choice. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
But I thought under the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, we got life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women, because this shit should be updated, are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator, not by the government, because the government didn't create me. They are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Much love to everybody. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for enjoying this stream with me, taking the time out your day, spend some time with me. Let me give my shout outs, Miss Pink, Big Dog, Philly OG, Sally Sue, D. Allen Warren, Bronze Flat Power God, JJ the Enlightened One. Who else we had in here? We had a couple people come by. We had my boy Chris Cyphers. Shout out to the Smokers Lounge. We have my boy We Are Awake News TV in the building. Shout out to my boy We Are Awake News TV. Much love to you, bro. Shout out to Quantitative Disease. I saw you in there. What's up, Q? Thank you for stopping by. Much love. Anybody else who stopped by, those who watch it in the future, thank you for taking the time and watching the stream. Hope you learned a lot from this stream and how history repeats itself. You guys be safe. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. You already know. Catch me on the flip side.